Hi, my name is Jake Alsop. I'm the Director of Recruitment here at Community Counseling Center.
My name is Dr. Siddharth Chandra. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist, and I'm also the medical director here at Community Counseling Center.
And today we want to talk about men's mental health. So, Doc, can you define men's mental health for us?
Yeah, so men's mental health is basically the emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being of men in general.
Absolutely. Pretty easy and nice cap on it there.
Thanks.
But, with men's mental health, it always seems that, this is one of those things that we as males, we don't talk about. We don't talk about mental health.
Sure.
We don't seek advice for the issues that we're dealing with. So, in your experience, what are some of those prevalent mental health issues that you see in the male population?
Sure. So men in general commonly experience a lot of mental health issues such as like depression, anxiety, racing thoughts, irritability, anger issues, and a lot of it comes from just isolation, like even if you're at work or you're with family, it's like men tend to have this mentality of like being the pillar or the caregiver, and so you just kind of take everything in and don't let anything out, and that gets overwhelming. So being overwhelmed is probably one of the things I see most often in men that I see in clinic.
Well, I know even for myself, I've been called the sham wow of the house, where I take everybody else's stresses and I just sham wow it up, right? And who rings me out, though? That's
right.
the big
right.
thing, and where
right.
do I go? So, that is a big thing, that stigma and even those barriers for somebody to go and seek help. So what are some of the stigmatizations, the stigma that surrounds mental health in men?
Well, the traditional view of masculinity is to be kind of like that pillar, that support. So seeking help or asking for backup or support is one of those things that's like considered to be frowned upon, Men have a fear of being perceived as weak or unable to provide or unable to function, and that kind of lowers your perceived societal value, and that is often why men don't seek help.
And what do they do instead?
Well, oftentimes they will rely on whatever they can think of, which sometimes are healthy strategies like exercise, diet,
I go outdoors. So.
Pursuing your hobbies, hunting, fishing, things like that. But oftentimes when it becomes overwhelming, it can lead to substance abuse problems, Oftentimes it leads to suicidal thoughts in men, and substance abuse can cause a lot of problems, and it leads to a lot of downstream issues as well, Yeah.
And so what are some of those other barriers that, outside of, those cultural norms or even those perceived norms as a man, what are some of the ways that we can address that in our profession? How can we bridge that gap and even just promote the importance of therapy or psychiatric services?
So part of it is just getting awareness out there, and I hate that word awareness, but just getting people to be in the knowledge of there are resources, there are things you can do, and the whole perception of mental health is so skewed in general because no one really talks about men's mental health. But a way that's easy to understand is if you want to get healthy, right? You start going to the gym, you work out, you get physically fit, right? But it takes hard work and persistence, right? You got to put in the time and put in the effort. Your mental health is the same way, you're not born mentally strong, You have to develop the skills and work out those skills in order to be mentally strong. I mean, the Marines and if anybody's in the military, you go through very intense training to become physically strong, but you don't get intense training to be mentally strong, You just kind of use your summation of your experiences, but in order to really be the best version of yourself, you have to be mentally strong. And the only way to do that is to, going to the gym, learn the skills, practice the skills, get good at them. And the best way to do that is to get a trainer, right?
Yeah.
And just like you get a trainer at the gym, you go see a therapist or you see a psychiatrist. Oftentimes, they can give you a summary of those skills and they can kind of walk you through the process. And a lot of times, people have this perception, if I have to go to a counselor, I just have to go talk to them and nothing happens. I just do it again and again and again. Nope. Just like going to a trainer. You go, you learn something, and then you go apply it to your real life. And you might have to go for a little while, you might go for a long time, you might come and go, but that's where the expert is. Utilize the skills, get better, and get well,
Absolutely.
And if you think of it like that, it makes so much sense,
Well, and even, if we have something that breaks on a vehicle, we go to the mechanic, or we even look it up on YouTube if
Sure.
we have to. I mean, having those people there that can help guide us through it is going to be important as well.
Sure, and yeah, I mean, just like anything worth doing is worth doing right.
Yeah.
And so, if you need electrical work done, you call an electrician, right? Get it done right. If you need your car fixed, you call an expert, right? You call an expert mechanic or an AC certified mechanic, and they're like, yes, we'll fix this, we'll do it right, so you won't get broken down tomorrow, right? Same thing. You want your mental health to be on point, go see an expert, and then a lot of times men recognize this, like it's not that we don't know, it's just taking that first step is often very anxiety provoking and nervous. It's something you've never done before, and because of societal perception, like movies, the media, things like that, you have this perception that it's going to be weird. But I can't tell you how many people I see who come in super nervous and anxious, and by the time they're like, wow, this was not scary at all. I'm like, just like going to the gym. I mean, like, you just come, we talk about what we can do to make your life better, we go over how to do those things, and then you go and do those things and then report back, and we do some fine tuning and rinse and repeat. I mean, it's really straightforward.
Well, then that was me 100%.
Sure.
The first time that I went to see a therapist, I wanted to cancel my appointment before even walking in the door because I didn't want to talk about the issues I was having. And lo and behold, went in there, started talking, and it was just so really surprising how easy everything started coming out and how much better I felt after the fact. And even from there, that next appointment, no issues. I was excited to come in.
Yeah.
So just kind of breaking that initial
Yeah, and it's easy. Anybody who's listening to this will tell you, like, it's easy that when you're in your own thoughts to make like mountains out of molehills. I mean, like, you just think about something, you get so focused on a problem, and you just lose perspective. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to see somebody and I've been like, oh, I start talking about my problems, and the more I talk to them, the more I'm like, okay, this is not that big a deal. Like, I get it. Or like they tell me something, I'm like, how did I not think of that? That makes so much sense. And I walk out better for it. And those are things, like a lot of the things that I've learned like that, I've applied in the future. I was like, got to write a thank you note for that one, because it's like, this saved me so much trouble. Like I got away with so much more, and was able to do so much more as a result of using some of the same things that I teach patients,
Absolutely.
So it makes a big difference,
And even with that too, when we talk about barriers, one of the ones that comes to mind, again, coming from more of my personal experiences, I worked in a field previous to this to where it was a helping field, in the healthcare field, and in that role at the time, I just felt like I couldn't talk with anybody. Whether it be EMS, fire, police, other healthcare professions, there's those situations where we may feel that we can't say anything or it'll take us out of the job. How would you talk to somebody? How would you tell me, that, hey, it's important to still go seek these services or this help if you need it?
Sure. So I see a lot of people who are in jobs like that, and the key thing is like, in order to have a job like that, right, you have to be reliable, right? And that's one of those things, like, it's not an external perspective. You have to know that you've got yourself in order, right? Yeah. And so if you're having problems, you don't have to go tell everybody at work, right? But you have to address it, So if that's the case, I tell people, go to your community mental health center, right? Don't go to somewhere that's not your work.
Yeah.
And seek help. EAP programs are anonymous. Mental health centers are anonymous. And unless you pose some imminent danger to yourself or somebody else, which is literally an emergency, unless it's that case, you can be anonymously treated and no one will be the wiser, And the key thing is you'll know that you are able to function, right? And especially in like high-risk jobs like EMS or police or things like that, or security, military. When people are relying on you, you don't want to have those doubts, And the thing is, the solution is so easy. I see a lot of veterans, a lot of people who are active military, and they tell me that, like, there are times when I'm scared that I'm going to let my colleagues down, and I'm like, that's a terrible feeling. That's making all this worse. And then as we talk over time, not even that much time, we talk, and they're like, yeah, like, I feel much better about this, and they, they perform better at work, they feel better, and it cost them nothing, I mean, like, there was no inconvenience, and a lot of them have said, like, man, I thought this was going to be so much worse,
right, and
it's not a big deal at all, at all, and so it works, and so that's what I say is just do something, I have no doubt that anybody who's considering seeking mental help, especially any men who are seeking mental health, have already tried all the things they can think of, right? But you can't know everything. You can't think of everything. Just go do something. Go seek some help. You'll learn something new. And then practice those skills, you know? You don't become expert at woodworking by just watching a YouTube video.
Right.
You don't learn to work on cars by just watching a YouTube video or just doing something once. You got to do it again and again. You got to practice. You got to rinse and repeat. Learn something, practice it, be better for it.
No, absolutely. And with that too, how can other family members help support the men in their household as far as seeking these services? Is there anything that you can speak to on that side?
I mean, the easiest thing family can do is just be supportive, you know? I mean, just recognize that, like, you can't keep piling things on a plate and it's not going to last forever, you know? And that everybody needs a break. Doesn't matter what role you play in the family unit or where you are. Everybody needs a break and everybody needs help. And no matter what the societal roles are, what the goals are, you know, everybody needs to be able to take that break and work on their mental health, you know? And it doesn't take much, but you got to do something.
Absolutely. And with that too, what about self-care? How can we as men practice some of those self-care practices or techniques so that way we can stay mentally healthy?
I mean, some of the common things are, like I said earlier, just take a break, you know, exercise, do things you enjoy, pursue hobbies, you know, focusing only on problems only lets you focus on problems, right? You have to have some outlet, some release for all the stress, you know, because life is hard, and especially for men with a lot of the societal pressure, things are even harder because you have no outlet. So you got to find yourself an outlet that works for you, a healthy, safe outlet. You know, a lot of times people like going to the gym, working out. You know, I like working on cars, you know, and watching car racing, hunting, fishing, things like that, woodworking,
So
you know,
golf,
metalwork,
golf for me, but then
basketball,
also
sports, anything. I mean, any of those things. If you do something, right, it helps break the tension and it allows you to go back to your regular stressors feeling better, you know, and sometimes as little as 10 minutes. I mean, you know, take a break, take a lap, you know. And
then any of those therapeutic interventions that you've seen that work a little bit maybe better, more effective working with the population?
So cognitive behavioral therapy is probably one of the most effective things, and it's literally, by definition, is of changing how you think and how you do things differently, you know? So you're better able to handle things. And it's literally a very specific set of skills and exercises that you can do, and they're things that you can develop. I mean, just like doing a bench press. I mean, you work on it, you work the muscles get better. Same thing, you know? You work on your mental health, you practice the exercises, you utilize the skills, you get better.
Yeah. Well, and even, you know, you mentioned the bench press as well. You know, you have that potential soreness afterwards. Do you see that as well when, you know, having the CBT therapy or any other therapies?
For a lot of the therapies, sometimes people find it hard. They're like, well, it's hard to talk about my feelings. I haven't done this ever. Yeah. I was like, well, there was a time you'd never run a mile, but you got to start somewhere. But the thing is, like, as you work on it, you learn what you can and cannot do. And, like, a lot of times people are like, I can't do this. I'll hear someone and be like, I can't do this. I'm like, just try. You got nothing to lose. You know, it might take 10 minutes. And a lot of times we do it in a unique way, you know? I mean, there's no standardized way, you know? I mean, I've got like a bazillion analogies about cars, boats, planes, basketball, baseball, football, everything. And like we talk about everything, but the key thing is like the effective skills, all the therapy is being done, but there's no like standardized thing. We can do it any which way. And so just the process makes a difference. So,
well, and one of the last thoughts that I've had as well, how can we better prepare, you know, our kiddos, you know, those of us that have kids, or maybe we help support them, or nieces, nephews, however, how can we help better prepare our growing boys into being able to have these conversations?
The best way to do it is just be open and communicate, right? Is just the key things that I have seen that are really good are be supportive, right? Being a kid is hard. It's probably harder now than it was before, but it's always been hard, right? Be there, be supportive. Like, don't teach young boys the skills to like just internalize everything. They can talk about their feelings, you know. You don't have to talk about them all the time, but you can talk about them. And if something's on your mind, I mean, and what I tell everybody, right, children and adults, right, I'm like, if something is stressing you out a lot, and you're spending a lot of time thinking about it, talk to somebody about it, right? You have nothing to lose by talking about it, and it might make the problem better, right? but you have nothing to lose by doing that. And I think just teaching that goes a long way. And then, like I said earlier about the exercise, mental health and physical health are the same. You got to work them out in order to get good at it, right? Just open communication is probably the most effective.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, any closing thoughts as far as men's mental health and anything else that we haven't covered you wanted to touch on?
Not really. I mean, I think I find it really good to see, like, over the last few years that I see more men coming in for kind of earlier and earlier in the progression of their illness, and we're able to do so much more for people earlier on where they have avoided problems. And I had, unfortunately seen people who have come too late, and then, they're like, oh, I wish I could have come 6 months earlier, or, I would have still had my family, or I would have, not lost my job, and things like that. And it's good. I like, it makes me happy to see people coming earlier where they haven't lost things. And so that's one thing that I think is really important. And then, increasing accessibility to care is something that's super important. Just there's so many resources out there that can be utilized, and just getting the word out there that, like, literally do something. Come in, go to the community mental health center, talk to a trusted friend, a religious figure, anybody. Do something, because there's so many resources out there that can save people so much trouble.
Well, thanks again for talking with us today. And this was our discussion on men's mental health for our Mental Health Minutes here at Community Counseling Center. As mentioned, don't hesitate. Utilize those resources that you have, whether that be, again, those close family members, friends, EAP resources with your work, and of course, community mental health as well. So Community Counseling Center is going to be a great place for you to come and seek those services if you need them, and give us a call or reach out to us online as well. But again, this has been Mental Health Minutes with Community Counseling Center, and thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you.